Welcome back to SecureGate. Today we're diving into an essential topic, upgrading firmware on FortiGate firewalls, switches, and access points. Keeping your devices updated is crucial for security and performance. Let's get started. There are a few important steps to prepare for the upgrade. One, you always want to back up your configuration. Now, nowadays when you go to upgrade firmware, it will automatically perform a backup, but I like to initiate a manual backup, and then I can copy that to a file share or wherever I want. So that will be done under your profile that you're currently logged into, configuration, backup. And you can choose to encrypt your file if you want, depends on your infrastructure and requirements. So I'm just going to hit OK. And that has now saved as a configuration file locally to my machine. So step number 2 is you always want to double check your recommended upgrade path and compatibility. So up here I have our upgrade path tool. We're going to look at our existing model. Let's just pretend we have a 60F, FortiGate 60F. Currently running on 6.2.5, if I remember correctly. Let's just double check. System fabric management. Yes, currently on, 7.2.5. We can see that F at the end, short for feature. If there's an M, that is short for mature. So our target version is 7.2.8. We want to update it to the latest on this major release. And we'll hit go. So we can see our recommended upgrade path here. We actually have to stop at 7.2.7 first, and then we can go to 7.2.8. But we want to make sure our switches and access points, if we had them, will be on compatible versions. So to do that, we want to look at FortiLink compatibility matrix for the switches. And then I also have a separate tab open for the access points. And both of these can be found on the document library in their corresponding section, FortiSwitch, FortiAPs. And I usually just do a quick search for FortiLink. And FortiLink compatibility. And then the latest will show you pretty much every code version that has been released so far. So we're going to be upgrading FortiOS to 7.2.8. We can see the R, short for recommended, by Fortinet. Now I don't necessarily want to upgrade my switch to the 7.4 code, so I'm going to keep it on 7.2 for now. And then let's go take a look at our APs. Let's pretend that we had maybe a FortiAP 221C. So our FortiOS version is going to remain, or it will be on 7.2.8, in which case the recommended FortiAP version is 6.0.6. Let's see, when upgrading firmware on firewall switches and APs, you always want to start at the firewall and then work in. So the order of operations is going to be firewall, switches, and then access points. And that is recommended by Fortinet themselves. And I'll pull up a document here that just tells us which order. So somewhere down here, upgrade the firmware of each device in the following order. FortiAnalyzer, FortiManager, we're not dealing with any of those during this video, but down here we can see FortiGate devices, so the firewall, and then manage FortiSwitches, and then manage FortiAPs. Before upgrading, it's also a great idea to look at the release notes for the versions that you're going to be upgrading to. So let's go take a look at that. Let's go back to FortiGate in the document library. We're going to be upgrading the 7 to 8. And I like to just quickly do a search here, release notes for 7 to 8. And I highly recommend looking at the known issues just to see if there's going to be any major problems that you can expect, especially in a production environment. I like to also look at the new features itself, which will be under new features or enhancements, just to see if there's anything new you might want to take advantage of. But that's all there is for prep work. So the next step is to actually download the firmware, and you can do that directly from the partner portal and then upload it to the firewall, or if you're running newer FortiOS versions, you can actually just do the upgrade from the firewall itself. Here we are under System Fabric Management. We can see our core here. This is the firewall that we're currently logged into. The upgrade status, we can see a new firmware upgrade is available. So if we click on that, or if we click on the firewall and select upgrade, we'll be brought to this new screen where we can see the latest 7.2.8 mature. We can also click on all upgrades and then show more to see everything here. But let's go back to latest. We'll click on 7.2.8, and you always want to make sure to follow the recommended upgrade path. So let's go ahead and proceed with this. Confirm and backup config. And the firewall will reboot, so make sure that you're doing this during a maintenance window. Alright, so upgrading the firmware depends on the model, but it typically takes anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. So I will pause the recording and we'll be right back. Alright, so we can see our firewall is back up. Let's go ahead and log back in. And if we look at our dashboard status, we can see our firmware version is now 7.2.8. So after upgrading, it's always best practice to just double check, make sure that firmware version is what you intended it to be. And then it's also best practice to just review functionality, just making sure firewall rules look good, VPN connections are up, and so on. So let's take a quick look at our IPsec tunnels over here, and we can see that our custom tunnels are indeed online. So for the FortiSwitch, if we select it here and pick upgrade, we can see that we don't have the same option of just automatically updating the switch like we did with the FortiGate. We have to actually upload the firmware file. And the nice thing about FortiSwitches and FortiAPs is there isn't really a recommended upgrade path, so you can just update to the latest version that you want to go to. And I quickly want to point out that never downgrade firmware because it is kind of known to cause issues. It's possible, but it's not recommended. So let's go to my tab over here. I am logged into the support portal, and I'm currently looking at the FortiSwitch product under downloads. So we're going to look for 7.2, I already forgot the version, 7.2.7. So I'm going to navigate there, 7.2.7. I'm going to look for the model of FortiSwitch that we have, which is a 108D. And the 108D is unfortunately not supported anymore, but let's pretend that it was a 108E, where we would download the file, and once it's done downloading, we'll come back here, select file. Now, my screen share might not be showing this, but really I'm just browsing to that download location, picking the firmware file, and here we can say the image doesn't match the platform. That's because I've selected firmware for an E edition when the switch itself is D. So unfortunately, it looks like this switch is probably end of life and is currently already running the latest firmware version that it can support. But if it was Model E, here we would select it and then just pick upgrade. So in this case, we've upgraded the firewall to 7.2.8, but the switch will remain compatible from a firmware standpoint. And that's it. So at this point, you've successfully updated your FortiGate device. Regular updates are really the key to maintaining a secure network. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe for more cybersecurity tips and tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.